haven't got enough money to feed my family, but I make too much to get food stamps. I don't even make $10 an hour.
Right.
Now, if you took that money and subdivided it between the taxpayers in this country, we would stimulate the economy. You know why? Because we'd go out and pay off bills, pay off tax debts, create jobs, and buy stuff that we need.
Caller.
That's how you stimulate the economy.
There's no way that you can look at this film and not be motivated to write your congressman.
It really got me thinking. It really opened up my mind.
A lot is at stake for our generation, and now the burden's going to be on us.
We were having an electronic run on the banks. They decided to close the operation, close down the money accounts. If they had not done that, their estimation was that by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, would have collapsed the entire economy of the United States, and within 24 hours, the world economy would have collapsed. It would have been the end of our economic system and our political system as we know it.
Crush is going to come. My baby granddaughters are going to pay for it.
It was a sobering reality.
It impacted me deeply.
If you're an American, if you care about this country, you need to see this film.
September 18th, 2008. A lot of people call it the abyss. We were beyond the abyss. I mean, you have to understand that in the history of the financial world, we never had $786 billion be withdrawn from quote-unquote safe money market accounts. This was about the banks. This was about a withdrawal of maybe $2 trillion and like the world's biggest margin call.
And that's why, when they made the point, we've got to act and do things quickly, we did.
It really gave me a sense of urgency that I didn't know was there until watching this film.
This is not just something that happened last year. It's been in the making for 20 or 30 or 40 years.
I've never seen a documentary like this. It was shocking, it was disturbing, it was frightening, but it was necessary. I think everyone needs to see this film.
And we had borrowed about $55 trillion.
Do you know what $1 trillion is? $1 trillion is one of these, turned on its side, piled dollar upon dollar, until you get to a pillar 67 miles high. That's $1 trillion.
As bizarre as Paulson was in a lot of ways, he got it. He got it immediately. And when he called these guys together and said, you know, boys, we got a problem.
You know, we're not any geniuses in economics or finance, we're representatives of the people.
And welcome to a Hannity special, Generation Zero. Now, the new documentary, part of which you just saw, examines not only the current economic crisis that our nation is in, but also how we got here. Now, the movie completely refutes the popular notion that massive deregulation caused the economic downturn and that, as liberals say, capitalism failed. So what actually happened? Now, this groundbreaking film reveals a frightening alliance between the Democratic Party and big business. Now, it also turns to history for answers, finding many of them within the baby boomer generation. Now, for the entire hour, we'll examine all of this, and we're now joined by the writer, director, and producer of Generation Zero, Steve Bannon, and the film's executive producer and the president of Citizens United Productions, Dave Bossie. Guys, welcome here. So you showed this, you guys, at the Tea Party convention. You showed it at CPAC, a massive hit. Did you ever expect this kind of reaction?
I got to be honest, no. I'm really shocked and obviously very pleased.
Two different audiences, too. I think the Tea Party audience was slightly older. The CPAC audience, very young. It hit them exactly the way we wanted to. I think that's the first time they've kind of seen all these facts put together in an 80-minute, 90-minute presentation.
Let's go to one broad overview. We're going to be showing highlights of this film, you know, throughout this hour, because this is really important. The myth is that capitalism failed. Sure. The myth is that the banks failed and the insurance companies failed. But there's something deeper to the story.
Certainly. It's hubris and greed at the same time that it's the cultural and social breakdown from the 60s that has really taken that 30, 40 years that led up to the September 18th crisis.
Look, on September 18th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, the Secretary of Treasury, went to the White House, then went up to Capitol Hill and told the leaders of our government that our economy was about to melt down, the world economy was about to melt down, and we would have a complete social meltdown. How did that happen? I mean, how did something that our enemies, the Kremlin, the Nazis, the Japanese could never do? We look at all the forces, did it to ourselves, and all the forces that came together over 40 years
Wasn't
of
that
business.
always their goal, that they're going to get America from within?
That's right.
Right?
That's exactly
what happened.
See, I always make the case that especially, and we'll get into some specificity and detail here, but the idea that the government would tell, first of all, they design the car companies in the country. The government would tell banks and financial institutions that they've got to make risky loans that they know people are never going to pay back.
Sure. Look, the greatest generation, the World War II generation, it would never dawn on them to take the type of risk that these people did. The people who were the 60s hippies, the people at Woodstock in the 60s who became the yuppies of the 80s and really the barons of the 2000s and really are the leaders around the country that helped cause this. It really is a remarkable thing.
That leads us into our next clip. Why don't you describe for our audience what this is? But for example, we got, go ahead.
The next clip is where we show the mothers the mothers of the 1950s. We show their lives. We show their lives in the Great Depression. June Cleaver, Donna Reed. We show what their formative experiences were. The Great Depression, World War II, where they had nothing in the Great Depression, then in World War II. Their husbands, their boyfriends, their uncles were in this slaughter pen of World War II. And in the 1950s, their objective was to have a nurturing environment so that that would never happen again to their children. And that's kind of the start.
Let's roll the tape.
People really misunderstand the 1950s. They think in terms of like June Cleaver and Donna Reed, as if everybody was discriminating against women, forcing them to stay at home. But that isn't it at all. They grew up during the Great Depression. They were surrounded by death. They were surrounded by starvation. They were surrounded by bankruptcies, homelessness. Just to survive, they had to go to a soup kitchen. These same young women, their brothers, their uncles, their fathers were tortured on the Bataan Death March, were slaughtered like fish in a barrel on the beaches of Normandy. They were tremendously traumatized by that. And the main objective is that their kids would never have to go through anything like that again. These are mothers who had suffered their whole lives. They considered a home with a white picket fence to be the dream of a lifetime. They lavished enormous amount of love on their kids. They gave them anything they wanted, gave them all the attention they wanted. So these kids pretty much grew up getting their own way.
You know, I watched this and it reminded me of my parents. You know, my father grew up really poor. It was a big deal. He signed up for World War II, fought for 4 years in the Pacific. And it was a big deal for him to get a 50 by 100 lot, you know, a Cape Cod house, 4 kids. I had 3 older sisters and 1 bathroom. It was not good. But this was were they too indulgent because of their experiences?
I think that's right. Look, that's what we explain in this film. I think that we go through how that generation wanted to protect and really do the best that they possibly could for their kids because they didn't want them. They had seen what the Great Depression had been. They had seen World War II and just the meat grinder that our boys signed up for and went day after day. So I think that because of that cultural reality for them and that they felt that they wanted to protect them, and that's what they did.
And as you see the arc of this story, this epic, you have to see where we came from, where the boomer generation came from. Look at what we had. Look what was bequeathed to us. You know, a country at peace, a country with a large industrial base, a country with very sound finances. If you look at the start of the story from the 1950s, there's no generation that could have ever started with more that was given to them by a country.
Straight ahead, a look at how and why the Democratic Party has allied itself with big business. Plus, how those who survived the Great Depression produced a generation of spoiled brats, and how those brats helped bring about the collapse of the American financial system.
It was all about me. It was me. I'm the most important person in the universe, and I'm going to satisfy my desires.